On the morning of February 21st, 2010, a Predator drone circled 14,000 feet above the mountains of Uruzgan Province, Afghanistan. Through a sensor ball beneath its belly, it beamed a live video feed across the globe, first to a satellite, then to a ground station in Germany, then through fiber optic cables to a trailer in a Nevada parking lot, finally to a $750 million station in Florida. In this darkened room, a team of analysts watched a group of men, women, and children, some carrying turkeys as gifts, climb into SUVs. To the analysts, the shimmering white dots on the screen were not people. They were nodes in a network, military-aged males whose morning prayers were interpreted as a prelude to an ambush. This is the reality of the remote death revolution. It is a world where technology has supposedly automated the process of empirical deduction, allowing a general to look through a soda straw from 3 miles up and decide who lives and who dies. But as we peel back the layers of the shadow archives, we must ask, has this surgical precision created a more humane form of war? Or have we simply built a high-tech machine that severs death from experience and replaces strategy with a never-ending cycle of egg? Mowing the grass? The evolution of remote killing began not as a technological quest, but as a legal and political necessity known as tertia optio, or the third option. For the American president, this is the hidden hand used when diplomacy is inadequate and open warfare is a terrible idea. Historically, this guerrilla warfare corps killed enemies mano a mano in close quarters, combat with daggers or poisons. The motto of its precursor, the Os Jedboras, was simple: surprise, kill, vanish. As battle machines were perfected, a psychological shift occurred. The shadow archives note that while most people find hand-to-hand killing repugnant, mechanized killing from a distance is perceived as somehow more palatable. This paved the way for the transformation of the CIA, Special Activities Division, from a group of singleton operators to a global strike force. The Finish Doctrine. In the 1980s, the U.S. military developed a doctrine known as Find, Fix, Finish. The goal was to maximize the ability to locate a human target, fix their position, and execute them. Under the presidency of Barack Obama, this concept was globalized into a targeted killing campaign that moved from the shadows to the center of national policy. From within the system, proponents argue that this third option is a vital tool for preventing a nuclear World War III by neutralizing threats before they metastasize. CIA Director George Tenet argued that if the agency could develop the capability to hit a target with a missile, they could promptly respond to sightings of terrorists like Osama bin Laden without the risks of a full-scale ground invasion. The dream of a system of systems, a coordinated mechanism that could identify and destroy targets with maximum efficiency, was first conceptualized in the 1960s as the electronic battlefield. It reached its zenith with the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, in Iraq and Afghanistan. What was once a niche covert activity became what a British observer called industrial counterterrorism. The scale of this machine is staggering. To keep a single Predator drone in the air for a 24-hour cycle, a support staff of 168 people is required. By 2014, the U.S. Air Force planned to acquire a fleet of 346 Reaper drones, more than 80 of which were under CIA control. The budget for these programs ballooned overnight. The cost of a single Global Hawk drone rose from $10 million to a sobering $223 million per copy. If war is a forest fire, the industrial model of counterterrorism acts like an automated sprinkler system. It doesn't ask why the fire started or how to replant the forest. It simply monitors for heat signatures and releases a payload whenever a sensor is triggered, existing as an end in itself. The fundamental promise of the remote death revolution is omniscience, the idea that if it is possible to see everything, it is possible to know everything. However, the shadow archives reveal a massive gap between the dazzling video clips shown to the public and the operational reality. Drone imagery is often described by veterans as no better than looking at Google Earth through a straw. The visual acuity is frequently 2200s, which is the legal definition of blindness for drivers in the United States. Latency, because signals must travel up to satellites and back down to ground stations, there is a delay of 2 to 5 seconds known as latency. By the time a pilot in Nevada reacts to a target on their screen, the scene is already out of date. This latency severs death from experience, as civilian intelligence officers in suits and ties watch victims be consumed by balls of fire from the safety of a tracked-home lifestyle. In Air Force tests, infrared cameras could distinguish a tank from a truck only 21% of the time. Yet the system incentivized certainty. In the 2010 Euroskin strike, when the pilot asked if a shimmering object was a rifle, the sensor operator, who later admitted being juvenile in his desire to engage, responded that any short figure must be a military-aged male. Ma'am, and ma'am meant he's guilty. The most controversial evolution of remote death is the transition from high-value targeting to signature strikes. In 2008, the Bush administration authorized a loosening of the rules. It was no longer necessary to know the identity of the person being killed. People could now be killed based on their pattern of life, suspicious behaviors detected by sensors or cell phone monitoring. This led to the creation of the disposition matrix, a kill list that functioned like a prioritized corporate hierarchy. The cycles and euphemisms, borrowing from the Israeli model of cycle memukad, targeted prevention, U.S. officials sanitized the language of assassination. A joke circulated within the CIA that if they saw 3 guys doing jumping jacks, the agency assumed it was a terrorist training camp and authorized a crowd kill. The metadata sentence: to execute these strikes, the NSA deployed devices like Triggerfish and Stingray virtual base tower receivers that mimic cell towers to scoop up numbers. In northern Afghanistan, the Joint Special Operations Task Force began targeting the telephones rather than people. Signature strikes are like a Darwinian process, where the military liquidates those inattentive to cybersecurity. It acts like a high-tech mowing of the grass, where the gardener assumes that by cutting the tallest blades, the lawn in the insurgency will eventually stop growing. The danger of this mechanistic approach is best illustrated by the September 2, 2010 strike in Taka province. The objective was to kill Mohammed Amin, a Taliban leader. Instead, the U.S. military killed Zabih Amanullah, a well-known election campaigner. Analysts had tracked a specific SIM card for weeks. They were certain it belonged to Amin. They ignored the fact that the HVT was traveling in a 50-car convoy of well-wishers, giving radio interviews and calling district police chiefs to inform them of his movements. The human toll: the first missile incinerated a pickup truck, leaving body parts strewn across a road littered with election posters. When the Irish researcher Michael Semple later informed the task force that they had killed the wrong man, they refused to accept it, claiming the technical evidence was irrefutable. Synthesis of failure. Zabih Amanullah had been a gray area individual, a former Taliban who was now part of the political process. By killing him, the U.S. did not decapitate the insurgency. It simply murdered a potential bridge to peace while confirming the Taliban's narrative of Western callousness. The remote death revolution operates under the shaping construct, where every kinetic mission is supposed to produce a desired political effect. However, the shadow archives suggest that these strikes often result in information fratricide. For every high-value target eliminated, the system often creates 10 new ones. When the CIA killed Baytullah Messed, his younger, more vicious cousin, Hakimullah took over and immediately launched a revenge attack that killed 7 CIA officers in Khost. Retired General Michael Flynn admitted that decapitating leadership only leads to younger commanders who are more radicalized. This is what critics call a journalistic Ponzi scheme, a strategy that creates the very chaos it claims to be solving, thereby justifying more drone budgets and more strikes. This failure to consider the information content of strikes is profound. In Yemen, the 2013 strike on a wedding party killed 12 people. Infuriated villagers marched through the streets chanting, "If they are Al-Qaeda, then we are all Al-Qaeda." We have now entered the final phase of the revolution, the transition to autonomous swarms. The Pentagon's Unmanned Systems Integrated Roadmap envisions a future where systems operate with an ultimate goal of full autonomy. This is one big robot, a global network of surveillance and death that no longer requires human permission to pull the trigger. Relevant programs: Gorgon Stare, a system that aims to transmit a panorama of 65 different pictures simultaneously, allowing analysts to rewind the tapes of history. Cicada, hand-sized disposable aircraft, dropped behind enemy lines to listen for trucks, a digital reincarnation of the failed Igloo White project. Mars Robots, modular armed systems that can kill human targets from 2 miles away with encryption technology to make them tamper-proof. The ethical warning. Even the Defense Science Board notes that the primary obstacle is trust. Commanders and operators are wary of autonomous systems behaving in unintended ways on the battlefield. Yet, the Office of Naval Research is already funding projects to imbue autonomous robots with moral competence, the ability to tell right from wrong through algorithms. "70 years after the birth of the secret state, we have achieved a mechanistic approach to war that would have stunned the original dark sorcerers of the CIA. We are fighting a sophisticated video game where the graphics are permanently set to low resolution. The spectators, the generals, and the public see dots and nodes rather than humans. This is a contested model. While it reduces U.S. casualties and provides predictive dominance in the short term, it creates a Darwinian strengthening of the enemy species in the long term. It is a system that excludes no viewer and requires no previous knowledge, transforming the life and death reality of war into a peekaboo world of fleeting images and detached violence. The remote death revolution is not just a change in technology. It is a change in the human condition. It represents the unending of history, where the same scripts of failure are repeated in every conflict zone. There are viable paths for change. Structural reforms must start with transparency, lifting the black classification from the results of targeted killing and allowing for independent verification of civilian casualties. Are we prepared to cede the power of life and death to a moral algorithm? Can a society maintain its democratic values when its primary means of defense is an assassination machine that operates without public scrutiny? Is it possible to stop a system that has become an end in itself? The history of secret technology reminds us that the battlefield is no place for human beings. If we follow this logic to its conclusion, we may find that we have not only eliminated the enemy from the battlefield, but our own humanity as well.